Hello, Captain Bringdown here. This is a special video created in direct response to two Reddit posts I made concerning the Golden Path and also the Hippie A Camp, or Silent Pro Mountain as it is known. And the first video was based mostly on Silent Probe Mountain and the Hippie Egg mural as a place to view a representation of the Golden Path that you're searching for, and also see how the Chiliad mural is also being shown there. So, but I would watch that video first if you're watching this video, because I'm going to show some props here that are give you more meaning to what all those things mean at the egg mural, also shown in correspondence to the path given to us by Rockstar. But this video will show what I call a slice of the maze, as I described on the Reddit post. This is why this is a grain of truth. I can't give you all the answers, and there's a very specific reason on that. But I will be showing another video after two other videos coming out, one on the first dose and last dose DLC clues, because I don't want you just to take my word for it. Once you understand how the clues are being given to you, then you can directly go to those missions and see how Rockstar is giving you an answer. Okay, so what this is hoping to do is to change your perception on what's actually going on here. Yeah, but that being said, the vast majority of searchers who are missing the biggest clues that are given to you, that these literally are, like Rockstar keeps saying, right in front of your faces. But before I show you the truth, you must ask yourself these major questions. What are you looking for?
Let me ask you a question. What is the point of your life? Where do you find happiness? I'm happy. I'm free.
How many times have you played this game, and every single time you played this game, what changed? Did you do the exact same thing every single time? And if you didn't, then did you notice anything different?
Well, a sense of overriding futility is a vital part of the process. Embrace it.
See, the majority of mystery hunters have never even solidified what the meaning of the mystery really is. And nothing that they hear and nothing that they learn is getting them anywhere. There's no progress.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll have a beer, and I'll explain how the world really works.
Which is why I'm here in the first place, is to try to teach you what you've all been missing this whole time. What's really going on here. The whole point of this mystery, once you have that in your hand, it's a lot easier to see what certain things are keys and how Rockstar is speaking to you, well, then you can find answers on your own. Like, I've already given you most of that right there.
Whatever you say, Doc.
But why should you take my word for it, right? Because what I find it very interesting that, every time new Reddit posts are popping up with people finding clues, they are saying things directly relationship to things that I've already spoken about this last year, on how things change depending on where you are standing, how the Greek aspect here is dominant, and it's funny to see how now people are starting to understand it. And the people that they rely on for answers are saying, don't listen to him, this guy's crazy. But the problem is that just because you don't see the pink elephant in the room doesn't mean it isn't there. And the key is that we saw something very specific. Like every mystery hunter, they all saw something very specific that they resonated with. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means that you lack that form of understanding. But everyone who's ever spoken to me personally will tell you I am a very logical person. The people that I run in my inner circle, we are very logical people. You say something is important, well, prove it to me. Why? If let's say for an instance, if there was in fact a path in which you had to take to where certain decisions that you made were in fact relevant, then wouldn't there be some kind of indicator that your decision made a change?
Can you tell me where Berto's beach house is?
But do you know why Michael couldn't show him where Berto's beach house was? Until the scene actually changed, and now he can. But notice the gold leading to the gold spin up. You see, what did he mean by looking out? Why did he say unless they buried it under the sand. There's very strange things that you're going to see that are in relationship to something else. For instance, the looking out of the wolf. See, what if I told you that that wolf sign and this foreclosure sign were showing you that how, as you went forward, they were combining together to give context to the other side. In the corner here, at the top right. See, from the very beginning, this game is making references on where you are heading to next, in the dialogue and in the scene. But they're also making references to where you actually came from. And once you see this, you're going to see how back there in the kitchen is where Amanda and the tennis coach were sitting. Also where Franklin walked down the house. And there's the rackets connecting this together. How things line up. The reason why it's Bobcat. But that's not the whole answer. There's more. The same reason why we see a cat here. Listen to the dialogue. One cat, two cats. And the dialogue, direct reference to what we just saw in Frank and Lamar and also here. But this is what connects things together, like that cat. But this is, again, there's more. Who do we know who is buried in the sand?
That dopey cowboys forced our hand.
With their face. And you can see how these things start, and look at the purple and gold on that sign. But you only see it in a certain angle. And this is the whole point, that things are being shown to you constantly in reference to other parts of this game. Remember, this is in reference to the Illuminati, to the powers that control you, the secret society. When you start to see what all these things have in details, ask yourself this: how is it shown to you in context of the game? And this is going to keep going on. Like, for instance, that broomstick you see there. Same reason why you see it as soon as you pull into the garage. Same reason we see it here. These are guiding you on where you were and where you were going. But the dialogue here, he's directly in reference to the strip club he's behind. Your dog ass, as he's showing there at his face right there where Chop is. These things are about lining up everything and what they are talking about. Like I said, why does Lamar stand like that? They're constantly breaking the fourth wall. This is the joke. We see the same thing, that everything is foreshadowing. You see, early on, most people were on to what was actually going on. They could see how them mentioning Chop several times in here could be in direct relationship to the mission Chop itself. That's easy, right? But it goes deeper than that. There's more things happening in relationship in these missions. Like that, for instance, show me where I just came from. So I'm going to show an example here where I towed the silver car with Tanya going directly to Chop, and that is the car that is going to actually spawn. So again, this is showing how these elements are coming along with you. So as you are transitioning to each of these missions, other things that you were doing are changing the actual game. You are affecting it by direct action. Karma again. But again, that stuff is easy to spot.
What's wrong with you, Tanya? Ain't nothing wrong with me, nigga. Shit. The fuck is wrong with you?
So you can see how they both start off the same, but you don't look versus sound. So again, we see the flipping of the most important elements, but you're seeing direct correlation to the ending of Chop and the beginning of Tanya. This is going into how certain missions definitely tie into each other more so than other missions. But there's other hidden elements in here that most people are missing.
Hey, Michael, hold on. Domed! I domed ya!
Here's another good example. At the end of Friend Request, and he calls Lester. Lester's playing Righteous Slaughter.
Yeah, sorry.
And Mike says that he's classic Vinewood.
They're all the same. Besides, you know me. I'm a movie guy. Classic Vinewood.
Okay, now this is the end of Chop, and look at directly the gold and those colors there.
Get out and walk around.
Could you see that Banshee and all that in direct representation of her and what she's wearing? Notice the she-male bop on the TV. And she swings out, screams, Looks like a banshee. So now we see Daddy's little girl. He's already talking about hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites. So again, you can see the direct correlation between the end of Life Invader to the beginning of Daddy's Little Girl. But did you notice that this is how this also ties into like Chop? These are hidden elements in the game you have to learn how to put together. Like this bike and the righteous slaughter. That again goes back to Daddy's Little Girl. But this is where I was trying to explain to people that this is the first X in the mural. And that this right here is another X in the mural. And you can again find direct correlation between those two. Between the checkered floor and the X on the wall there. But remember, this is a blue and gold line. But would you have believed that that was the blue and gold line that you saw at the egg mural? Would you look at this ladder in direct connection as being the same ladder that you just saw? You got to try to put these things together. But the question is, can you look at things and see them as other things? Like, for instance, we got the Cowboys van here. He drops parenting advice. And notice that lines up with Bristol plant tits. And here we see the same construction, but this time it is a white truck.
Left here, we going through the parking lot.
This is one of my favorite ones early on. The red bus and the motorcycle going through all the ones on the wall. 4 important cars there, but look at how the green path, the green line, is blocked by the white van. So there you just saw the ones, the red bus, and there's the green line, and you are the white van now. How it's flipping and morphing and changing. But again, showing there's correlation between very specific missions. Like, what do you always hear here? Is it the turn, or are you on the right track? Keep an eye out. So, and see, just like again we saw in Father and Son, we see a dump truck here, and we see the pirate radio. Which do you hear when Mike calls them pirates for stealing his boat? The dialogue and things are flipped, but they also are in relationship to other things. Again, people saw how the moths, they come into my house, take my money, and nail my wife. How they saw the same moths was with Stretch, but they didn't connect the dialogue. Fucked your girl, mugged your mom. Look at how Lamar covers his face. Again, this golden spiral going up. It's the same golden spiral we see him coming down and Michael going up. And this is going to be, again, in marriage counseling and also in complications. And they said these things are the golden line. The golden line is traveling with the missions and also with the dialogue, showing you where you just came from and where you should be going. But it gets deeper than that. The same as he's sitting there with his feet kicked up.
Man, hey, Chop, go get that food.
It keeps going.
I think Franklin's the one taking the easy way. Guy's got his feet up in an aircraft hangar.
You see, they thought that this was something that you were all going to like connect with immediately. That you were all going to see how easy this was, how you're hearing the same dialogue, you're seeing the same scenes being played out. So they decided that they were going to make it harder for you as the game goes on. Where here, he's sleeping, he's sitting there with his feet kicked up. Metaphorically, right? They didn't say it, but it's there. That's why this is a puzzle. You're lining things up.
Be careful, line it up on the truck.
And then you can see how these direct things, like we're stealing cars, just like we've done in the very beginning of the game. Look how you see muffs, and look at the repair shop. Remember, just like when you exit of complications. So the connections are going to repeat themselves. They're going to be easy to spot at first, but then there are some that aren't so easy to spot. There's another one where we see the same white van where these guys are sharing.
Pouring our hearts out, and this guy is.
Now, how could this white van be in relation to another white van that we know? Oh, look at that. He recognized him. The fool knew him. Okay. Now, could you see that in relationship to this van?
It was a bit more complicated than that, though, wasn't it, T?
Maybe I knew the guy. Maybe he ID'd me.
6 months.
You did 6
Maybe.
months.
I got out in
Maybe.
4.
I was out in 4, and that, children, is why we don't leave witnesses.
That, children, is why you don't rob people that you know.
In for 6, out in 4. Share, Franklin. Don't forget, Chop starts with them not sharing, remember? Notice the 6 and the 4. Look, there's even the red dot. You see, this is how this game is actually being played. Is that the same things you're seeing in the past or the future of the game is being repeated over and over again. And when you open your eyes to this and you're looking for answers on what you should be doing, then you can see that all these things are telling you where you came from and where you need to be going. See, it's the same but not. It's never quite the same each time, like the golden line here and all these. Pay attention to all the props. Like here it's spoken in terms of gangbangers. This is why they're sharing here. Where in the other mission, they're not sharing. There's a lot of other clues being shown here. What's the theme? This goes back to the theme of why these two things are connected. Is remember, this is about a train. And she definitely wasn't going to get a train on her. And this is again how all these clues will start to make sense. Like the monitor there, I already showed you with the broom handles back in Franklin's house. But here, remember the call beforehand says that there was somebody creeping around here. Look at the red, yellow, and blue. All these things are in direct reference to where you already came from. Wolf, wolf, wolf. Chop.
You're developing quite the rep there, Slick.
Look at the H's hidden here. The doors.
They don't like cats with the inside
Cats,
edge
you say.
shorting them either. So how'd it go?
Smooth.
Movie people.
You know what the irony
Hey,
is? I'm a major
just like
shareholder
in
St.
Franklin and
Stewart, so we
Lamar,
just
they
asked
were
practically
legitimate,
legal.
right? It's practically legal. And just like we see him show up from the front view, just like he saw those cars in the beginning of Franklin and Lamar. Look in the back, you see references to Simeon. You see the same barrels of water.
True that.
Look at the
Darren
buckets.
Weston, master of the
2-hour orgasm. This is a reference to the girls.
Lamar Davis.
Won't shake his hand. Now, these hand models, you can actually model what's being happening here. You'll see with Stretch. That's why he didn't shake his hand.
Just the type of guy I like to work with.
Predictable.
Hey, we could bring your boy
Hey,
in
just
on a
like
nice
in
partnership.
what happened when Trevor is introduced.
Exactly.
If you want him in, then you get him to boost the rest of the shit you got.
But don't forget that this all started with spirit walking, and I can tell you how Franklin's actually creating the brain.
I can see it. Look, I need you on point when we move
Notice
this
the
stuff
points,
out
the
of town.
pointing.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Remember, compare this to the Stretch and count the pointing.
Ciao, baby.
It is what it is.
Yeah, whatever.
And again, we see references
Anyway,
to
come
law
here. I'm
school.
gonna put you in touch with my legal counsel.
Hey, don't touch me, homie.
Oh,
I
homo?
don't get down like
But let me show you how the world really
let me
works,
tell you how the world
just like
works,
complications. So hopefully you've seen enough correspondence to change your level of understanding. That all the props, dialogue, scenes created in this game are all tied into each other with multiple levels of correspondence. That these themes flip and combine and morph, if you will, each time in different missions, but these concepts are repeating themselves, which is a big deal, right? So now that you know all this, you play the game again, and you will start to see what's actually being shown to you, and what's actually being said to you. And like I've said this a million times, it's telling you what to do. Okay, but now all that being said, it's important that you take this on the most logical level, right? So your first assessment must always be that of the pessimist. This is meaningless. This means nothing, right? So what could this be? Well, we know it's here, so it's something. So what is this if it's not meaningful? So this could be a literary callback to, or a literal callback, where the devs and the writers came together and said, hey, it'd be neat to put these props and elements in there to exactly bring things back together again, to complete the circles, right? Right. But there's a big difference between callback and foreshadowing. Both these elements are here, and you must ask yourself, well, maybe this is just a troll, right, from Rockstar? Feeding the conspiracy theorist mindset, keeping people searching for meaning where there is none, right? Keeping people playing this game, which a lot of people feel that that's how Rockstar is treating this, filling it with things just to mislead you as a form of trolling you. A lot of people's beliefs on what they believe was going on here are getting shattered by Rockstar releasing all these new DLC content, and they're thinking that Rockstar is just teasing the community at this point, not giving any answers. But in reality, Rockstar has been doing everything in their power to give you answers to those questions that you seek in all the new DLC, new content that's coming out. And this is destroying a lot of key people's beliefs, but they are doubling down on the way that they are giving you this information. So it's done the exact same way, through the missions, through the story, through the dialogue, through the scene. And when you realize this, then you realize that this whole time they are literally telling you what there is, and that there is something to find. And they wouldn't be working so damn hard to tell you this if there was nothing there, right? But this knowledge was never supposed to be pointed out to anybody, and it was something that the only reason why I'm pointing it out now is because Rockstar is telling you, whereas before it was clearly strictly forbidden to actually share. And I did my best to try to get people to see this world for more than what it really was. There's more to see here the more you look, but that's the problem. Most people aren't looking at the world. People have turned into mystery hunters, and they're trying to just kill this thing and put it on their wall, where the game is rewarding the searcher. Those who have taken the time to stop, look, and listen will start to see how there's a very distinctive pattern and a very specific way that you must do this.
Far, but the journey has only just begun.
I don't know about that.
The truth is incredible if you're capable of understanding it.
See, but the biggest issue you're going to have is, do you understand what the symbolic representation is here? Can you take the literal interpretation here to see what needs to be done? Can you see this in another way as it's being presented to you during the game? Do you know how to navigate through this game? Because the thing is, all these things are giving you clues at exactly what needs to be done, but you got to put all the pieces together. This is not a linear path. But as you can see, Rockstar gives you clues. Cold as the snake right on the skull, right where the guy spawns, because remember, you want to avoid any unnecessary nonsense. But who else do we know who has a surplus of paper and a deficiency of brain cells? See, where you were given a choice here, or they told you to do it here, you had the option the other way. So again, this goes back to, are you understanding what they are telling you to do? How to avoid any unnecessary nonsense. And this goes back to how all these things are pointing to an action. Because in the end, what is the biggest ally you have in this game? Or the greatest thing against you? And this goes, it's time. And this is the biggest problem that you are going to see in this game, that it's really hard to actually get that gold, right? But I wanted to show here that how it actually changes, because as I killed the dog, he doesn't say don't hump him this time. He says, don't kill him this time, boy. So again, you can see how there's a small example of how they were prepared for something that you might have done. But it also gave us the hint to do this. He said, get off me. She's a biter. That bitch just bit me. Top of a shoplifting beef. I ain't got no beef for the CGF. That's what I mean, is you gotta learn that these things are being flipped and being changed, and they're telling you how there's levels of correspondence. Like one of the easiest ones again to see is at the end of Chop. You're at BJ Smith's, BJ, and it's a sports center, and with footballs. And he sends you a text saying, hey, have you seen this monkey dude around town? But I also want to point out, hiding behind the trees here in the corner is your first peyote. So again, is there anything in the game that's referencing that you should go take this peyote? So I'm going to show you an example of this. See, because when you first spawn into the game, it again depends on time what's on the television. And see, right here, you see more head rides again. So just as you come in, you see the green mushroom outside, connects you in more head rides again. But this is also why Beverly is hiding in the corner here, and how his dialogue matches that of the end of Chop.
Give me that motherfucker. Hey,
And look,
whoa,
there's the
back
monkey
off
man.
there, cowboy. I know my constitutional
Cowboy.
rights. Anyway, I know you're coming here to suck cock.
Coming here to
so
suck cock.
what the fuck you talking about?
Went to BJ Smith's, the football star. Quarterback blues.
You know, some of those older records of yours, even they sound a little bit closeted. I'm just saying.
You see, and this is what I'm talking about. It's not just one thing. You have to have it all connect. Did you get the peyote? Did you get that text to tell you to go see the monkey man? Look how he points to his eye. Why the other guy does his face like Lamar. There's a code here you must learn to understand. Okay, so I just showed you a direct connection between Beverly, Chop, and the peyotes, right? So now we're gonna look at how Poppy's mission has a quick dip. So using the same level of reasoning, do the peyote in the ocean, because again, quick dip was about swimming into the actual pool before you go spy on Poppy. So knowing that the first connection was at a peyote, but also in connection to Chop. And it was like, when you do these things right, you get the ugly dog, you get the happy shark. And this is again showing that your direct actions that you were doing are correct. This is also why we see the castle, and also why you also help the guy with the bicycle. But listen to what he says.
Deep breaths.
Deep breaths after just coming in from swimming in the ocean. So this is what I'm talking about. These little things are going to start to line up and change in correspondence to where you're actually coming from. And this is why it's a castle. But see, this also goes back into when did you come to these missions? Did you get here with Franklin, or did you see the rackets with Michael? What does the rackets mean? I said earlier, I showed a reference that those were Arcadius. This is again where you're hiding little clues like that phlegm there in reference to the peyote at his house, but that's if you knew what the brain was that you were building, and you know the king. And this goes back to why it's heart-shaped trees. But again, choices here, and what you're doing is you're actually filling the gaps and holes where otherwise the dialogue and cutscenes wouldn't make much sense. There's a lot of things referenced out of context. So here, instead of going to Lester or anywhere, I switched immediately to Franklin after ending marriage counseling. So the last time I was with Michael, he was at that park, and I did the whole mission on the side.
Experience, homie. Someone's got to do it. I really don't think so. Hey, look.
But this goes back to how you're using elements and props that you see earlier in the game to find correspondence that are leading you to different parts of the game, of how they want you to actually play this. This is also why we see the eye, and this is for Integrity Way, and where we see Chop on the other side. You also see May's Bank. But then, like I said, Mike has been there this whole time, standing there while I did this mission, and allowed us to reunite.
Hey, man. Weird seeing you here.
And give me that beer that he actually promised me. And this is the whole point, that when you're doing all these things, what you're doing
I'm sorry I broke into your house.
is closing all these loose holes, these gaps, completing the arc.
You know, one door closes and that shit.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's have a beer sometime.
Yeah, for sure, dog.
And this is because you are tying all these loose ends and getting the full story. Think of it as a shattered story, or a body, as they say. Like you see him talking about all these body parts.
My eyes hurt. I can't feel my arm.
But this goes back to how all these things are, you must tie everything together as it's spread out throughout the game. And the more your actions go into correspondence of what you need to do, the more you get full answers to exactly what they want you to do. These are blocks, or story chains, as one would say. It's the chain, as Rockstar shows us, that ties all this together. But these references are going to go beyond just simple things. You got to see what they are forcing you to actually see. What all these things have in common, and how they are all sharing these clues. And this is why even during the missions there, they show you that you should have done these things. But this again goes back to how they're all separated by one block. These are, like I said again, a block, like Franklin said, blocks makes a difference. These are connected story blocks. Speaking of blocks, and the one thing that annoys the hell out of me is people don't understand how Epsilon is part of this golden path. Now that you know what you know, listen to exactly what she is saying.
So connected. The wonder of all crafts creation, carefully Islam. I am everything I need and less and more. Confront who you are. Focus on what happened before your birth.
That's a
Remember
North
what Prince
Yankton
taught
reference
you.
there.
Be here and 34,730
Direct
other
reference to all the
places.
props and everything to show you what
you
is there.
know. This is not a wall.
This
It's
isn't a reference to how these clues are morphing, but also how this is in relationship to something you saw in the past. Think about where you can see that writing on the wall in another
today
place.
And the tract can be written.
Wait. I can't believe that you got wrapped up in this bullshit.
But this is
You
where a
seem
lot
like
of
a nice
people, I'm
girl.
sorry, they fight this
Objectionable
tooth and
antitheses
nail.
are worse than
And they
idiots
always
on a
complain
sinking
and
ship.
say,
The
well, how do you
watcher
know
makes that
what's
very
true?
clear.
Well, does
How
the
can
literature
you
make clear that
say
you need
this
help?
is right and
I
what's wrong?
have help.
And I tell
I know
them,
the
again,
truth.
this isn't my opinion.
Are
I'm
you
just
even
telling you what the
capable
game
of
is
listening,
saying.
Zondar?
Question is,
Tip-off.
can you see it? So if this is built by Rockstar, the whole game, what is it that they are trying to show you? But can you see the things that they are showing you as other things, as maybe giving you hints as to choices or when these choices were given to you? Did you understand the newspaper and how that was a reference to Johnny later on? Did you actually see how the shopping cart and rainbow boxes was a reference to Hal? Did you see the belly up box and how it's always in reference to Epsilon? And why this is one of the most important things in the whole game that you must be seeing. And yes, everything really does suck.
You have it in you to be happy, but are surrounded by people that you must let go. Your capabilities are endless, but they
You
are
can't
limited
just be
by your
looking at one thing.
incapability.
You have to realize that this is a whole, the whole game. And how do you read this repeating pattern on this wall? Well, it's easy when you know what you're looking for.
Look, JB gonna lose
You
everything.
know where
He
they're
gonna lose the
referencing.
house.
You see the
You know
way
what
he
I'm saying? The
stands?
business,
Like the
everything, and you
first
his cousin,
link
nigga, you
on
said
that
you was gonna
set.
help.
How these things end with that little S formation there we see at the end. Again, that's one set of things. See? But they sneak it in there because now that they know you're looking for it, they make it harder and harder for you to see. And remember, that has been there since North Yankton. But again, I can't force you to see any of it. But Rockstar is trying really hard to give you the answers into what it actually takes to make all this stuff happen and what's supposed to happen. And again, they're using clues that aren't supposed to be taken literally, but these are figurative examples of what needs to be done. But you must put these things in connection on what is the head looking at, the entrance of the actual maze. Well, where else do we see this actual head? It looks like there's something on the inside of the head that's changing them. And what is causing this? The time in which the head sees. And that's exactly what these things are. These are metaphors and symbols that you're supposed to find meaning as to how these are different aspects of this game in which you were bringing along that are tying in loose ends, but are also creating the mystery as you are going along. Because how else would you know that there is anything there to find? And what these three key elements are in their relationship to the moon is because, again, this is about synchronicity and how you are bringing these elements together across the timeline or across the whole game. And then again, this goes back to, well, what is this key? What is this golden key that needs to be used in order to make this all work? What are these satellites that you are in control of? Anybody versed in anything that is related to Rockstar or Grand Theft Auto will know that the moon is the biggest key of all. And the thing is that this sounds like it's difficult to do. I'm not planning any of these alignments. These alignments are happening as I'm playing the actual game with no actual I'm not physically trying to do these things, but these things are all in relationship as to what a very specific moon cycle that must be used to tie all these things together. This is about when you start this actual maze. When does the maze actual start? And this is because, again, the timing in which you start this links up these other events in the game to complete the cycle. And how these things must be put together, or this never triggers or happens in the first place. But then you may say, well, Captain, how do you know that to be true? Well, again, let me refer back to Red Dead Redemption 2, where they're a lot clearer on how these things work. From the manual chapter structure, Red Dead Redemption 2 main storyline is divided into chapters. Each in-game chapter features a number of missions that are unlocked in a particular order, and sometimes under specific conditions. A new mission, for example, may become available only one in-game hour as you complete another. You might notice that a handful of stranger missions which are technically optional, are covered here rather than in the exploration chapter dedicated to such events and opportunities. This is because these specific stories are connected to the main plot and are time sensitive. Should you fail to complete them before you reach particular story milestones, you will miss them altogether. End quote. See, Grand Theft Auto 5 was the testing grounds for everything that they wanted to actually create, and it was very hard, very difficult, so they had to be a lot clearer into the next installment. And so and then the same pattern being used here is also being used in Red Dead Redemption 2. They even modeled the setup to the same story of Grand Theft Auto 5. This is a mirror world. So again, first you must understand mirror correspondence. Look for answers into the future for the past and past to the future. How what's happening in the beginning is affecting the end and vice versa. And this is how you people are looking for very specific things, and you're asking yourself, well, what's the answer? Well, look to the future for the past and the past to the future. Remember, this is you manipulating this world. The time, you are Chronos, the god of time, as if these things are in the palm of your hand. You are a god, so you must be learning how to manipulate these things. But by digging deeper into this symbology, you start to see exactly how Rockstar is using these universal symbols to relay a message. Follow the triangles, follow the gears, follow the timing. Why is it a tiny sword? Why is it a giant disc? Like, what is it that they want you to actually do with these eclipses? Is there any hint? Yes. Rockstar tells you over and over again, it's these wings. These wings and what's with the building of the eclipses. But what are these wings? Do you see the eagle being represented here? Did you see how this is between the body, these eclipses, the eagle?
Do you see that eagle? Keep looking at it. Imbue the simplicity. Now, not see it. It's still there.
So every clue that is given to you is a metaphorical clue to represent something else. The symbols they are giving you are symbols of the mystery themselves. How this convergence of these very specific things that these things mean to give you to the ending that which you see.
That's not just impressive, it's revolutionary! Today, right here, we're about to make the next step.
But don't take my word for it. Now that you have the eyes to see how they are giving you messages and answers in this, play these things again in the context of how they are in direct relationship to other things. Remember, this is about how you were playing the game, not if you actually won. So are you going to follow the path that Rockstar is giving you, or are you going to just continue to do it the same old way? But again, what are you keeping an eye out for? What is changing? There is very distinctive things that are going to happen, you're going to notice, especially through testing, if what's random and what's not. Do you get the same thing every single time? What is it that made these changes? This only comes from really understanding and knowing this game. So that way when you see something that you are 100% guaranteed that it is random, then you can see it and say, oh, that is obviously not random. This is I warranted change. It's pretty darn obvious when you see it.
Yes, it's obvious. It's really obvious. Once you've studied the literature and done the classwork and
this is at least the base of anyone's knowledge if you want to understand this maze.
Close to everything. And you, well, you're still lost.
And I can't express this enough. If you're gonna search for something, how would you even know what there was to search for? If nobody told you, how would you have found it?
Everything you know.
So again, I just gave you a slice of the whole cake. And the truth is that you need to learn to see these things for yourself. How else will you know what's right and what's wrong? The game tells you. Listen to what the Rockstar is giving you. The game itself. Where the mystery is.
Brother. I'm happy with my certainties.
You want answers, I'd go straight to the source. Captain Bringdown out.